Do you perceive yourself as someone who is really independent? Do you think of yourself as self-sufficient and self-reliant? If any of this is true for you, then you likely struggle with being close to other people. Why do I say that? I say that because the most independent and self-sufficient and self-reliant people are simultaneously the people who have the most difficulty getting their emotional needs met for closeness and for connection with others. And this is in part due to the ways in which we grew up. If any of this resonates for you, then you also likely experienced some form of emotional neglect. As children growing up, we have to balance our own sense of authenticity and of being true to ourselves fundamentally, and also fitting into the family group that we were born into and their own cultural proclivities and values that sometimes are not our own. They're not our values, and so we kind of clash with them. And as kids, we don't have any other, for the sake of our own survival, we don't have any other choice but to sacrifice our own authenticity for the sake of belonging to the group. And this extends into our adult lives as well. And in this process of fundamentally abandoning aspects of ourselves, the aspects of ourselves that our parents have the most difficulty accepting, for instance, we sometimes, if not all the times, experience some form of emotional neglect. And what I mean by that is not being heard, not being felt, not being seen for who we actually are and what we're actually experiencing. And neglect can show up in a number of different ways. For instance, it can show up as the encouragement that was never given, the loving support that was never shared, the sense of belonging that was never expressed, the care that was withheld. These are all forms of emotional neglect, and they persist into our adult lives. It can, as adults, it can then become difficult to show up and to connect with someone else authentically, because fundamentally there's an aspect of us that we're still neglecting and we're still abandoning. And the antidote for this is really to be authentic with ourselves and with other people. It's in essence to be intimate. And by intimacy, I mean, into me, I see. It sounds cheesy, but it's helpful for me to remember what I mean by that. It's fundamentally your willingness to be seen, to be heard, and to be felt in the presence of others. It's your own willingness to be with yourself, with the aspects of yourself that need you the most, that require the most attention from you, in the presence of others, and to do the same for others in return. To be with the aspects of them that sometimes they may feel is not okay to express or to share. And it's this intimacy, it's this willingness to be actually authentic that is the antidote for the emotional neglect that we felt growing up, and that we perpetuate into our adult lives and shows up in our adult lives as a fear of communicating our needs and of thinking that it's falling into the illusion or the delusion that we can meet our own needs by ourselves. And it's in a sense a form of spiritual bypassing to think that we don't need others to help us meet our own needs, or rather to help us meet our needs for us, and vice versa. We're fundamentally relational beings, and human connection is vital to our well-being.